I feel like I should make it clear from the jump in this video, I'm not even a Denver Broncos fan. I am just wearing the shirt because 1, I collect football shirts, but then 2, because, well, you'll see. So there was one play from last football season that changed my perspective on the game of football more than maybe any other. More than definitely any other. And the amusing thing about the play was that, I mean, all things considered, it wasn't that great. It was cool. It was pretty cool, but it wasn't like Lamar Jackson stiff-arming Sam Hubbard and lobbing up a pass to Isaiah Likely in the back of the end zone cool. No, this play, this psychedelic play, this play that for some reason altered my perspective on the game of football entirely, even though nothing about the game itself changed, only the way I view it changed. It was a chill, big play, relatively speaking. It really was. I mean, I could give you 100 guesses, you probably wouldn't get it. I could give you 500 guesses, you probably wouldn't get it. I could tell you it came from the playoffs. Maybe that would help you narrow it down. Maybe you would get it then. I won't waste any more of your time. I'm just trying to make this video look good. It was the 58-yard touchdown pass on like a jailbreak wide receiver screen to Terry McLaurin from Jaden Daniels in the divisional round, second quarter, about 6 minutes to go, I think, against the Detroit Lions. Yes, this was my shrooms play. My perspective alterer, my paradigm shifter, that's probably doing too much. My play from last year that made me reevaluate to like a serious extent, I'm not kidding here, the way that I view the game. It was that powerful. And on one hand, sure, this play wasn't actually that powerful. It was a second quarter touchdown, right? It was big, but it wasn't that big. But on my other 2 hands, because I have 2 more of them somehow, this was a really big play. This was a really powerful play. First and foremost, this was an incredibly symbolic play, right? The Lions started out hot in this game. They had 2 touchdowns on their first 2 or 3 drives. The Commanders got a touchdown early themselves, but it did seem like the Lions were the better offense before this game and the better team overall. And we all were thinking before this game that if Washington, if they weren't answering every single time they had to from the jump, this could get out of hand. This play then, therefore, in one sense, a symbolic sense, was the moment in this game that Washington said, we will not back down. We're here to stay. We're just as explosive as you. We're just as dangerous, as potent as you on offense. We can make things happen too. Matter of fact, we might just beat you. This was a powerful play in that sense. But unfortunately, that's not the sense I'm talking about. That's not the reason I'm starting this video by talking about that play. See, to me, what made this play so powerful was how simple yet effective it was. I just grabbed this off of my performative bookshelf behind me. Do you know who this is? This is Cody Alexander. He's an author. He's a former coach. He podcasts, all that stuff. Shout out Cody. I've been on his podcast, actually. Cody Alexander has used one of my favorite terms ever to describe how offensive evolution works in the game of football, and in turn, defensive evolution. Cody's a defense guy. The term Cody has used before is spatial Darwinism. Football is a game of space. It's a game of finding the space, and it's a game of controlling that free space, getting to it before anyone else can, and holding on to it for as long as possible, over the course of a game, a season, whatever. Last year's Washington Commanders, to me, are one of the ultimate spatial Darwinist teams we have ever seen. That's why I bring that term up. And what I mean when I say that is that few teams from last season made use of all of the space on an NFL field better than Washington. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of things that could mean. We'll start with this. Last year, Jaden Daniels scrambled 75 times. The next closest scrambler was Bo Nix, who was at 50. So if I'm not mistaken, Jaden Daniels was 150% of the second place guy. Not only that, Jaden Daniels 75 scrambles. I just went as far back as I could in the database, PFF. No other quarterback comes close, like within 10 scrambles over the course of an entire season. Of course, the 17th game is its own thing. Even still though, if we're just talking per game, JD is number 1 all time in scrambles in a season. How does that apply here? Well, if we're just talking conceptually, think about taking advantage of space on a football field. When you send receivers downfield on a play, right? Well, there is a lot of space closer to the line of scrimmage, and a quarterback who's fast can take advantage of that space and stretch a defense. Now a defense has to worry about defending that lower level, even when the receivers are attacking the upper level. You know what I mean? That's not it though, and that also doesn't address the play that kickstarted this video. Spatial Darwinism, being a spatial Darwinist, well, It helps when you're fast on the ground as a quarterback. That's one way to be one. But also, the other big way to take advantage of all of the space on a football field, well, it's screen passes. Matter of fact, it's not just screen passes, it is passes behind the line of scrimmage, period. Last year, Jaden Daniels finished top 10 in the NFL in both of these things, passes behind the line of scrimmage and screen passes exclusively. As the season went on last year, Daniels threw downfield quite a bit, but early on, 25% of all of the throws that Jaden Daniels attempted in weeks 1 through 4, when he was ramping up as a rookie, right, adjusting to the pro level, well, they were all behind the line of scrimmage. Cliff Kingsbury is notoriously a wide receiver screen, bubble screen guy. Jaden Daniels already notoriously was a pretty fast quarterback. Both of these things, on their own, are pretty great ways to attack space that a defense might give you, and when we combined them, for really the first time ever, I've made this point before, seeing a spread offense with a quarterback as fast as JD in year 1 for a QB, this was like the first time we've ever seen that at the pro level. It was ridiculously dangerous. I mean, that was the Commanders for you last season, a spatial Darwinist team, a dangerous spatial team. They'd attack you behind the line of scrimmage. They would attack you downfield and then attack the space you give them if you're covering downfield. They would run the ball well. They would just take what the defense gives, attack where the defense isn't, and that approach made them incredibly consistent. This was the best 4th down team we've ever seen. It made them incredibly mistake-free. Jaden Daniels, his turnover-worthy play rate was really low, right? And it made them really explosive. Because when you attack the areas on the field where the defenders aren't, well, you might just break loose for a 58-yard touchdown in the divisional round against the number 1 seed in football. Because no matter how physical they are, no matter how attacking they are, no matter how injured they are, in fairness, if there's only 3 defenders somewhere and you nail 2 blocks, well, it's a one-on-one. And if you beat that one-on-one, like Terry McLaurin can, well, the rest is history. If you listen to offensive coaches talk about football or expert offense analysts, I'm talking more authors from my performative bookshelf, Bobby Peters, Dan Casey, well, one thing you hear them all agree upon quite a bit is that an offense's screen game is an extension of its run game. Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports, one of my favorite analysts, he's often said that the screen game, it's the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, for the rest of your offense. If you have a good screen game, if you have a synchronized, dangerous, explosive screen game, well, that means that your offense is great at 2 things. 1, taking advantage of space, right? But 2, and just as important, if not more important, a predecessor, a prerequisite here, on the same page, in sync, because a dangerous screen game is hard to orchestrate. In football, there are 2 types of run plays, effectively. Gap scheme runs and zone runs. Zone runs, as I understand it, are kind of like a sea, an ocean of offensive linemen. Their main assignment is to all go in the same direction, and to be on the same page generally as the guy next to them so that they don't mistakenly double up on someone. But again, to the point of the name, it's more about the zone, the direction that you're headed, as opposed to a gap scheme run. A gap scheme run is all about taking individual defender assignments and having offensive linemen who are fast enough and well positioned enough to loop, to overlap, to pull themselves out, reattach somewhere else, and not lose sight of what gaps they are trying to create and where. Why do I bring that up? Well, when you look at a well-designed screen pass, I'm trying to get it in the camera here, they look like gap scheme runs. Pulling linemen, sprinting linemen, receivers cracking down. Editor Anthony here, sorry the mic is different. One other point I'm trying to make here that I forgot to make is that gap scheme runs are notoriously harder to practice. Wide zone stuff is easier to practice without pads or like without going full speed because it's about directional assignments. Gap scheme stuff, if you've got a lineman pulling, going around, looping through, you really need to rep that full speed. So if you have a good screen game, if your linemen are smart and aware and going to the right places, moving at full speed in game, that means you're doing a good job as an offensive coordinator. That means they understand what they're supposed to be doing. It means they're on the same page. When an analyst says that the screen game is an extension of the run game, they mean it. I mean, the screen, after all, that's a pass behind the line of scrimmage. It's basically just an extended toss, right? The quarterback, he's not throwing it downfield. He's throwing it over here or over there. And again, all of the weight here, the majority of the work here, well, it falls on the offensive lineman to get where he's supposed to be in sync, to be on the same page as all of the other linemen and the receivers and the tight end. People talk a lot about what the future of football might look like, the future of spatial Darwinism. That's what they're kind of talking about here, even if they don't realize it. And you'll often hear these people, these general fans, talk about like laterals as the possible future here, because that's something defenses aren't prepared for, and it's a good way to take advantage of space downfield. And if you talk about laterals, I like where your mind's at, but allow me to propose this to you. What if, before we started taking advantage of space downfield, space that requires a completed pass to get there, right? We applied that same spatial Darwinist thinking behind the line of scrimmage. We need to do that first. Respectfully. Which is why, to me, at least for this coming NFL season, but honestly for however many seasons I can even conceive of in the near to semi-distant future, screen passes are the future of offensive spatial Darwinist innovation here. The screen game is. The extended run game is. I've been holding this book in my hand for a while. Bobby Peters, check him out. This is the 2024 Tampa Bay Buccaneers Complete Offensive Manual. Last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made history in a way that I'm not sure most people appreciate. This is one of the most nuts offensive stats to me, like ever. Literally ever. Last year, the Bucs offense made history by becoming the first team ever to complete 70% or more of their passes in a season and to rush for over 5 yards per carry. Think about that. Let that sink in. That's ridiculous. 70% of your passes, 5 yards every single time you handed the ball off. And all due respect to Baker Mayfield, I love him. He's an incredibly fun watch. Baker is not the kind of quarterback that I think of when I think of the term consistency, which I think is kind of implied when we talk about completion percentage. Now, I think if you were to ask someone who is not grinding their way through this video what these two stats have in common, a 70% completion percentage and 5+ yards per carry have in common, they might say nothing. That just means that you're really good at throwing the ball and really good at running the ball. But as esteemed readers or Anthony Lawson watchers such as myself or such as you would now probably agree, there is something that connects these two stats, and that would be the screen game. Because when you're completing 70% of your passes, and you're also really dangerous on the ground, well, that might just mean that your offensive line and your offensive coordinator, your offensive system, it's helping in both of these departments through that screen attack, through that spatial Darwinist behind the line of scrimmage attack. Last year, Baker Mayfield led the NFL in yards per attempt on passes behind the line of scrimmage. Do you think that helped his completion percentage? I would reckon it did. Last year, Baker Mayfield had more yards on screen passes, total yards, than any other quarterback in football. 700 to be exact. That's about a sixth of his total yards on the season. Last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had probably the best offensive line in football. I say probably because the Eagles were pretty dang good too. But you know what I will say with confidence the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had the best of in football? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had the most in sync, on the same page offensive line in the NFL. That is exactly why Liam Cohen is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that is exactly why this team put up one of the most nuts, insane, unfathomable factoids of any offense that we have ever seen. 70% in 5.0. Spatial Darwinism. The future of offensive innovation. Also, once more, shout out to Bobby Peters. If you want to learn more about the Bucs screen game, this would be the book to do that. To the point of the Bucs and to the point of the Washington Commanders, when I think about what's next in the NFL, when I think about what I am going to watch for this coming NFL season to determine my opinions on the best offensive coordinators, the teams with the best offenses, period, the teams with the brightest futures on offense, I'm looking for the teams that innovate. And I'm not looking for the teams that innovate downfield, the teams that try to push the boundaries, push the limits of this game in the opposing team, the defense's backyard. I'm looking for the teams that are cooking up in their own backyards. Recently, Robert Mays of The Athletic, he does this thing every offseason where he tours as many training camps as possible, talks to as many head coaches and execs as he possibly can. And one thing he does is he asks them what they think is next for football, or what sorts of innovations, new ideas teams are borrowing for next season and are jealous of in general. Screens were, of course, a big point of discussion in this year's episode, and backfield innovation in general was a big point of the episode. The Green Bay Packers are another great example of that. Matt LaFleur, all of the fast motions he has, where guys like Jaden Reed will run in and out of the backfield. The stuff that the Packers were doing when Malik Willis was their quarterback for a couple of games. A lot of that, again, was the screen game, getting guys like Tucker Kraft the ball in space, taking advantage of space in weird ways, unpredictable ways. I've got my Denver Broncos shirt on. Now I can finally talk about them. The Broncos last season had one of the more complex offenses in football from the jump. It's one of the big reasons that Bo Nix struggled so much early. Delay of games, breaking the huddle, shouting matches, lighthearted shouting matches, but shouting matches nonetheless with Sean Payton on the sideline. Sean Payton runs like a 401 level NFL offense, and Bo Nix, he might be old, but he wasn't old enough to be ready for that from the jump. As the season went on, though, Denver got pretty good at running the more advanced stuff, and they'll probably only be better this year. They're on my radar, they're on my shirt for that reason. But I will also say that Denver is a fascinating example, an eye-catching example candidate here for that spatial Darwinism topic. One, because of their screens and their attempts behind the line of scrimmage. They were 4th in total screen yardage last season. Bo Nix was 2nd in total pass attempts behind the line of scrimmage last season. I mean, there was no way around it, especially not early. Denver was trying to space the field horizontally, much more than vertically. But also, and this is the reason that Denver has made this video that is not only about screens, but about spatial Darwinism in general, Bo Nix did 2 things last season that make me really optimistic about Denver's future and Denver's ability to control space. 1. Bo Nix was 2nd in the NFL behind, of course, Jaden Daniels in total scrambles last year. 50 of them. He's fast. He has wheels. Sneaky athletic, if you will. But 2, you know how I said that Baker Mayfield's pretty volatile? I mean, I think anybody who has eyes could agree to that. One big way where you can highlight how volatile, how shaky, dangerous a quarterback is when it comes to consistent offensive play is pressure to sack percentage. How often when you feel pressure, when you have the defense in your face, do you generate the worst possible outcome, a sack? Other than, of course, like a pick six, Will Levis. Will Levis and Caleb Williams were top 2 in the NFL in pressure to sack percentage last year. In previous seasons, guys like Justin Fields and Zach Wilson have been at the top of this metric. It's pretty common for rookies to be at the top of this metric, because when you're a rookie, the game just moves really fast. Last year, Bo Nix had a pressure to sack percentage of 13.3. For comparison, last year, Baker Mayfield was double that, 25.2. Bo Nix, though, his pressure to sack percentage puts him right next to Lamar Jackson. This was a guy who did not take sacks, used his legs to find space behind the line of scrimmage, and then either scramble, right, because he was 2nd in that, throw downfield because he could do that too, or when the Broncos felt like mixing things up, they would just get the ball out of his hands early. All of this amounts to an offense that still has plenty of room to grow, but in the meantime avoided negative plays at a really usefully high rate, especially when you have a defense that good on the other side. That is what made Denver so consistent last year. No sacks, impossible to pick off passes a lot of the time, and an offense that overall could hum in the meantime. I mean, this is Sean Payton calling the plays. This offensive line, it wasn't super respected before the season started. Now it's ended up at the top of basically every offensive line ranking this offseason. Because again, similar to, say, Tampa Bay, this is a team that was clearly on the same page across the offensive line. That's why I'm excited about Denver. That's why I'm bringing them into this spatial Darwinism video. I'm going to talk about some other teams that have my attention for this coming season, but first, I need to pay the editor, need to pay the bills, so thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this video as we near the football season. I mean, if you're watching this, it's either already kicked off or it's kicking off later this week, depends on when I get this thing up. As you might be gathering from this video, or as you might have gathered from some of my other videos, I'm a very thematic football thinker. I think I've talked about this before. I'm always trying to guess what's coming next on a macro level, across the league, all 32 teams. I like to think conceptually about this stuff related to spatial Darwinism, the screen game, how those things might overlap. You get the idea. And so when it comes to the types of bets that I like to place on the game of football, I tend to opt for those sorts of futures-related, big picture, common denominator long shots far down the line, talking about these screen-heavy teams, what sort of stats those teams and players on those teams might be accumulating come week 17 or the playoffs. I don't know. Who might make the playoffs? Something like that. All of this is to say, 1, thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this video and helping me, produce this thing. And 2, with the NFL season kicking off, new customers on DraftKings who bet $5 get $300 instantly in bonus bets. And $200 off of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That is, if you sign up using this promo code, ESQANT, or clicking this link above my head right now. So yeah, if you want to place some future bets of your own, and if you want to kind of guess what I am projecting as well and bet alongside me, one more time, that code is ESQANT. Again, thank you to DK. If you've been noticing my uptick in video output, that has been because of the flexibility that I have here on this production side, the extra time and resources that I have. If you've watched some of my old videos, you know that that stuff has kind of taken a leap recently. I really do appreciate DK's help on that front. Now let's talk some more about screens. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Now as I wrap up this video, let's talk about some teams that have my eye for this coming NFL season. Ones that I have not already mentioned, related to the screen game, extending the run game, and how dangerous they might be next year. First and foremost, I actually have the New England Patriots. If you're a Patriots fan, you know that Josh McDaniels, their current offensive coordinator, he cannot help himself when it comes to screen passes. A lot of times, this was to the team's detriment, like in the Mac Jones era or at the end of the Tom Brady era. But the thing about the Mac Jones era is that this team, and this is often forgotten, when this team had Josh McDaniels as their OC, well, they were a top 10 offense in EPA per play, and they were top 5 in yardage on screens. They were also top 10 on the ground. That was, again, with Mac Jones. This year, not only do I expect this team to have an in-sync screen game, with left tackle Will Campbell, mind you, who was on the same par athletically as Tristan Wirfs and Trent Williams in terms of his 40-yard dash and vert. This is a guy who, even if his arms are small, can go out and hit on the ground when he gets to run. Well, also these guys have a quarterback who last year ended up 5th among all quarterbacks, all rookie quarterbacks since 2006 in total expected points added off of scrambles. Jaden Daniels, surprise, surprise, was first, but Drake May's right up here too. This team's going to cook you with him scrambling. This team's probably going to be pretty dangerous dealing the ball out behind the line of scrimmage. They've got big body blockers like Mac Hollins. That strikes me as a team that's going to be fun. I also think the New York Giants are going to be pretty interesting. I don't know if they'll be as dangerous as we would like them to be. They've got a lot of missing pieces on their offense. I would say offensive line's a big worry. We don't even know when Jackson Dart will play. I will say, though, that this team generated maybe 50% of Jackson Dart's total passing yardage in the preseason off of screens alone, really. Brian Daboll is the type of offensive mind who understands how to make things easy for a rookie. Jackson Dart is a rookie, and he's also got wheels. So again, I think this team will take advantage of space better than people are expecting. I would be remiss not to mention Ben Johnson and the Bears. Caleb Williams needs to get the ball out faster. Last year, he held the ball longer than any other quarterback in football. If the Bears' new play caller can force him to get rid of that ball faster, I'm sure good things will happen in that offense. Luther Burden was lighting it up in the preseason with his blocks. Rome Odunze is already a great blocker, and Ben Johnson's notoriously preached the no block, no rock mentality. I think that the Minnesota Vikings could be great because, one, they have a young quarterback, which seems to be pretty common in terms of denominators here that lead to a commonly leaned upon screen game. And then also, I mean, Kevin O'Connell, he's one of the better offensive minds in football, I would say. The Jacksonville Jaguars have Travis Hunter, a guy who was dangerous on screens in college. Brian Thomas Jr. was as well. Two really explosive, bendy after the catch guys. Well, BTJ isn't bendy. He's just straight line speed. Travis Hunter's bendy though. I mean, I already talked about Liam Cohen. There's only so much to say other than it will be fascinating to see how on the same page he can get these Jags linemen, because I don't think they're really generating that much hype on their own this offseason. They're not that caliber of a unit. I will quickly mention the Miami Dolphins as well. I really like Mike McDaniel. I mean, he's a former run game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. He knows how to make things happen on the ground. The question with that team has always just been the interior offensive line and the ability of that unit to move in sync. Also, again, to the point of this video, screen games are an extension of your run game. And the Dolphins, they barely even have a normal run game because they, in previous years, have not been able to attack between the tackles. You got to start in the middle and build out. We'll see if they can start in the middle. If so, they'll probably be monsters behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's been Tua's specialty in some ways for a while. Getting the ball out quick, all of that. And then finally, this is going to drive everyone nuts, but it's a team that I've really been waiting to mention all video because people hate them, and people think I'm a fan of them, actually, because of how much I praise them, which is funny, because I think they're deserving of praise because they've won 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years and been to 3. Well, the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes had more attempts behind the line of scrimmage than any other quarterback in football last year. Patrick Mahomes had the 4th most screen pass attempts of any quarterback last year. Even people who hate the Chiefs, who loathe everything about them, will concede to you that Andy Reid is one of the greatest offensive minds, offensive innovators of all time. And the Chiefs have buffed up their offensive line. They have a pretty athletic left tackle now in Josh Simmons, and they're going to have more receivers back than they did last year, including yak weapon, speed demon Rashee Rice, along with speed demon in the football sense, Xavier Worthy. They're probably going to be good in the screen game, guys. And it's probably going to be the maddening sort of good, where everybody wishes that Patrick Mahomes was doing flashier stuff downfield, but he might not, as much as we'd like to see because he doesn't really need to. I think that's all I have to say for this video. Let me know if you like this style of video. I kind of just turned on my camera and talked about all of the things that have been on my mind that have been too long to put in like a TikTok, because that's the other place where I talk about football. In fact, I tried to talk about this on TikTok a little while ago, and I think it was like too much of a long-winded video for that algorithm. But maybe YouTube will like it more. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think there's a team that I am sleeping on in the spatial Darwinism department. Let me know how you like this style of video. The football season's coming up. I'm just trying to find whatever style you guys seem to like the most. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you so much. You know where to find me. I'll flash my socials in a second. And hopefully, I'll see you soon. Happy week 1. Bye.